right, so here at Studio 1452, here at the Michigan Chronicle, is the one and only Detroit Police Chief James White. It's going to be talking with you, sir.
It's good to be here, sir. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So there's a lot that's been happening in the city, and I know that you are a big proponent of community policing.
Yes, sir.
And also mental health and the practices in which your officers are taking creative and new approaches to dealing with citizens who are dealing with challenges on that front. But first, let's begin with we are downtown, so our studios are.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about the department's strategy to combating violent crime downtown or crime anywhere downtown, because we know that before the summer hit, and as usual, the summer crime numbers start to tick up. So how was the department's response to earlier shootings in the season that, you started to beef up your patrols or beef up your numbers and officers downtown? You also done something also interesting, introduced scanners as well. And I think that's been something new for visitors to Greektown. So how did the overall strategy work?
Yeah, I think the strategy's going well. I mean, it's no secret when we launched early spring, like April, I think it was like April 14th. We went into our early spring deployment. We were caught somewhat flat-footed right out the gate. By design, we went into the spring deployment, which is lesser than the midsummer deployment. And so we saw an uptick in violence that first warm weekend. We saw numbers downtown that we hadn't seen, ever. For a number of reasons. People are emerging from COVID. Not that COVID's over, but certainly there's a feeling that we're in a post-COVID era. And so now you've got numbers that were pre-COVID numbers, but even more than that, with the venues downtown and the reasons to come down and all of the activities that are going on, we saw hundreds and hundreds of more people, and particularly young folks, teenagers, that we hadn't seen. So we immediately reacted to that first weekend by going into our midsummer deployment in April. Again, something that we didn't think we were going to have to do, but those were increased numbers. Those were our 12-point plan. We had a focus on safety for everyone, a focus on folks being able to engage and have a good time. But those who were down to do things other than that, we needed to address that as well, and that involved those scooters and mopeds and mini bikes and off-road vehicles that were illegally on our streets. They're off-road vehicles for a reason, and so we address those. And we also address the loud music, not from the citizens driving up and down, but the actual businesses in Greektown themselves. We found that was some of our problem. Some folks that were loitering and drinking in public. We needed to address that. There's an ordinance against open intoxicants in a public space. And so we were very focused on doing that.
Chief, to speak to the point of when you are deploying, when you've had to deploy those higher numbers early on of officers downtown, where are those officers coming from? Are they coming from other areas or neighborhoods of the city, or is this something you plan for anyway?
Yeah, so very good question. And I get asked that a lot. We are concerned about not just downtown, we're concerned about the whole town, right? I mean, we just left a meeting this afternoon, our weekend deployment strategy, holiday weekend deployment strategy. Going to be a long weekend, a lot of parties, a lot of events in our neighborhoods. And this was all focused on our neighborhoods. The mayor, as you know, and the city council voted unanimously on a new raise. And it was very beneficial for us. We were able to bring in.
Excited about that.
Unbelievable. I mean, it certainly made my life a bit easier, being able to recruit and be able to have a competitive salary for our officers, being able to retain by giving our officers that we currently have a healthy raise, and also being able to bring officers back to the department. So that helps with adding numbers to deployment. But we have a minimum staffing for each of our precincts that we do not go below. We will not compromise that. Commanders are held accountable to make sure that their minimums are met, and that is based on calls for service and deployment in our neighborhoods. The other thing that I've been very fortunate to have as a mayor with experience in the judicial system, people forget that he's a former prosecutor. Right. So when I come to him with a strategy and a plan and say, listen, I'd like to pay overtime for downtown, He says, okay, show me your strategy. And he said, yes. He not only said yes, but we moved that to double time.
Mm.
So the officers that are deployed downtown are on double time, and they're on their own time, meaning they're off from whatever shift that they're on. Some of them are actually using vacation time. They come in, they work the double time detail, and they make additional money. That allows me to keep those resources that are scheduled in the precincts.
Okay. But when you also look at combating crime downtown, because, you know, you get the narrative that's happening in other big metropolitan cities and urban communities. You know, we've seen examples in, you know, in Baltimore and Chicago of how their downtowns, while nice, has had upticks. Something we haven't seen here though, but just brazen, you know, burglaries and thefts along Michigan Avenue for Chicago, for example, where it's just rapid crime and people are fear visiting their own downtowns because of the crime. We haven't really seen that here in Detroit, thankfully, because of your leadership. But here's the other point. I had someone visiting from out of town some weeks ago, and people bring this up. Why is there police everywhere? And for us citizens, we know why. Because we saw, for myself example, the week before you probably deployed more officers downtown, it was shootings left and right. So for people who live in Detroit, for some, they like the police presence, the extra police presence. They can, you know, have a good time, a lot of entertainment shows. But then there are some critics, whether outside or those who live in the city, who say, wait a minute, there's a little bit too much police presence. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, and listen, I understand both sides of the argument. I do. But I got to keep the city safe, and I got to keep folks safe. And, you know, and I get that criticism. I get it when I do my walk mile Wednesdays, and, you know, that's my walking meeting in the community. And I've had people say, you know, too many police. You got police everywhere. And, you know, I would love to be able to do a lot more proactive patrols and to be able to spread people out differently. But we respond to where the crime brings us. And we have a unique situation in our town where one area of our town grows exponentially between Thursdays and Sundays. And we know statistically that the population in the city increases Thursday through Sunday in the summertime months. People from all over come. You know, what's interesting is a number of our arrests downtown have been from outside the city of Detroit. The overwhelming majority have been from outside of the city of Detroit, particularly as it relates to carrying a concealed weapon.
People who don't live in the
people that don't live here, don't live in the city. And so, you know, we have to keep our residents safe and our visitors safe. And we found that, you know, we can deploy responsibly. We can deploy, you know, with a community relations base in mind. Everybody's not a criminal. Everybody's not doing something wrong. So we take that into account. But we're going to patrol these streets, both downtown and around town. We're going to engage folks who want to break the law and do nefarious acts to people who live, work, and play in our city. We've got a Lions Stadium that's going to be packed this year. But we've also got other good problems to have. A few weeks ago, we had.
I mean, it's a good problem to have when Ford Field is packed for the Lions. So.
Oh yeah, and I'm hopeful this year. We'll talk about that another.
Right.
But think about a night when Fox is up, Ford Field is up, the Red Wings are playing, the Pistons are playing. That's coming. And so when you talk about, you know, and then not to mention the other venues, the Aretha Franklin Theater and others, we've got a lot of people. We've got stadiums that hold 60,000 and 20,000 and 15,000. And so we need cops to make sure that they're safe. But there's a way to do it too. We move our deployment around as the data shows us we need to. You talked about these other major cities. I'm friends with a number of those law enforcement professionals in those cities, particularly Chicago and Baltimore. I got a buddy that works in Baltimore, and we exchange information all the time. And what's interesting, amidst the criticism of too many police, I get them calling me saying, "Hey, how did you guys do this, or how did you do that? I see your numbers are dropping in this area." You know, we had a great week on auto theft downtown during the Afro Fest. You know, we had the weekend 3 cars stolen downtown. You know, I haven't seen that in a very long time. And the question I asked was, how did we do that? Deployment. We had a lot of cops moving around. We had a lot of undercover cops in parking lots catching folks before they stole cars. And so those are the tools that work. And as we see crime drop in one area and rise in another area, we will move that deployment to those areas.
So other cities and police departments are looking to you in Detroit as a model. in certain respects.
In certain respects, and I'll be, I'll be very transparent with this. I also reach out to cities that get things right and say, hey, what are you doing in this area, so that we would replicate your success as well. So we talk collaboratively. We're all part of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and so we talk about strategies that work, strategies that don't. Even some of the things with our 12-point plan, I borrowed from other cities that got it right. The towers that we use downtown. We took that idea from New Orleans at the Mardi Gras, and they had those tower deployments, and we talked to them about how they do that and how they use that information.
And to that point, yes, because that's one of the criticisms that I've heard, is that it looks like it's a new world type of city. When you go downtown, you see these towers and the command center post, and I mean, it's
Yeah, we did, but we also saw 11 shootings April 14th downtown, right? And since that time, knock on wood, we haven't seen any. But the bottom line is, I have to respond to the safety of everyone. We had a man shot leaving the Tigers game that weekend that I'm talking about. And it's just, I mean, he lived, thank goodness, but it was just absolutely unbelievable that two kids got into a fight, decided that they would shoot it out, and an innocent person walking into a restaurant got shot in the leg. And it's like, so you just can't have that. And it's not just about downtown, it's about our town. We're better than that. We're better than that as Detroiters. We're better than that as people who love this city. And as we're seeing this resurgence and this comeback, nothing can derail it quicker than senseless violence.
Yeah. We are, a few short years departed from the George Floyd situation, and you really had a universal condemnation of the police actions in that situation. And many law enforcement agencies found it hard to, and in some cases now, to recruit people who want to be a part of law enforcement. I know officers or the police departments have faced a lot of criticism and probably not enough praise for the work that you all do. But you have been a proponent of community policing and really engaging citizens, right, on the front end. How's that working? And also, how's it working to recruit more Detroiters to be a part of the department?
Yeah, you got a great list of questions today. And let me start with the George Floyd murder. That is not law enforcement. That has absolutely nothing to do with what I signed up to be. That was a murder. And I will always condemn those types of acts. There's no place for that in policing. And there's no place for that in any police department in this country. Community policing is part of the fabric of our department. It's not something that we do, it's just who we are. And it starts with me. We have a great MPO program. Everything we do has a community base. I do my Walk a Mile Wednesdays, and sometimes I get criticized for them. I don't know why, but I think they're important for people to see me as a human being and not just a figurehead. I try to engage. I run with the class. I'm working tonight on patrol to engage our citizens. I'm going to make some police runs and talk to our community because they need to see me, not in times of crisis, but all the time. So when there is something to discuss with our community that they may not agree with, at least they have an understanding of who I am and my type of leadership, and they have an understanding of who our department is. And I think that helps us. It doesn't solve every problem, but when you have an NPO program that's professional, that's engaging in the community, that's out with the community, you have a chief's office that's engaging in the community, and a media team that understands this community first, in those uncomfortable moments or those moments that are not necessarily representative of the professional police department you have, you're transparent about it. There's a believability factor that's there. If you only try to put that work in crisis, no one's going to buy it. And so we're going to continue to do the community policing work. It's part of what we teach to. It's part of what we train to. Our new recruits must engage the community before they can even graduate. We have a program called Serve Then Protect, which means that each class has to go out into the community and find something to do, whether that be clean a yard, whether that be walk our neighborhood, but you've got to be able to tell me something about this community before you patrol it, because we've got people from all over that are coming to Detroit. We have really made an emphasis to recruit Detroiters, but for many reasons, some of which you've talked about, police work is not something that a lot of people want to do anymore. And so our message is be the change that you're seeking and come into the police department with your ideas, your principles, and your concepts and make us better. We think we're a good police department, but we can always have room for improvement. And if you think that you see things a little bit different than we do, you come in and show us how to see it clearly like you do. And so that's worked a little bit, but the numbers are not where I'd like to see them. So we're recruiting from all over. We're bringing people in from out of state. The raise and the bonus certainly helps that. And so that's where we're at.
And you graduate in a class each month?
Every month.
And how are those numbers?
30 a month.
30
roughly on average. Now there's some months that we've dipped down because of testing and things like that, but we're on average around 30. I'm really getting ready to challenge the team to get us 40 a month over the winter months so that next summer we can really have a true presence throughout our community.
The other presence that we're seeing across the city are officers who are specially trained in the area of mental health. You have a background in that area, and the department's doing some innovative things under your leadership in that area. So let's talk about how that's going, because we know that the needs of our community is sometimes, and how what type of calls that the department responds to. Sometimes you're just met with challenges that require a little bit more intentional focus.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, this crisis is here. It's going to be here for a long time. I just want to give you some numbers. 2022, we responded to 1,800 mental not violent runs. Already this year, 2,081. Mental violent arm last year, 797. This year, mental violent arm, 985. Last year, mental violent not armed, 3,261, 3,632 this year. Suicide in progress, 847 to 991. Suicide threats, 1,717 last year, 1,777 this year. Grand total, 9,466 mental runs this year. Last year, same time, 8,456. We've talked about.
So there's more.
There's 1,000 more.
Yeah.
And so we have implemented our mental health co-response team that are highly trained. They are working with a mental health provider, civilian, on that car. That unit is equipped with a number of things that a regular police officer isn't. Besides the training, they have additional tools. They have non-lethal weapons. They have a different uniform and appearance, softer uniform, a different color, because sometimes when folks are in crisis, the actual presence of a blue uniform is a trigger. And we recognize that, and the best practices showed us that we need a softer uniform that doesn't say the word officer on it. And so their uniform has their name. And many times just their first name, not Chief White, but James, right? They were green, they were gray, and the police lights,
The vehicles,
have green lights because we found that the red and blue lights were triggering. So we're doing everything we can, and this information is informed by professionals. We're not just making this stuff up in a room. We're looking at best practices around the country. We're talking to mental health providers. Some of the things we knew, some of the things we didn't, like the lights being a trigger, how they oscillate is a trigger. There's people who mentally associate that with negativity and problems and threats and danger. And believe it or not, the high profile brutality cases in law enforcement has also been a trigger for some of those folks in crisis. So when the police respond, they immediately think that their life is in jeopardy. And we're like, wow. And so we had to adjust to that, and our delivery and our approach had to change. And so they have been very successful. I certainly don't want to say that we have solved this crisis, because we have not. But it's on our doorstep. We have to address it. We have to be ready to deal with it. But more needs to be done. More needs to be done in mental health.
I do want to get you quality of life, and also circle back to downtown finally. One of the issues that some residents have concerns with is the fast cars, and that are the ones that are doing the donuts in the middle of the street, taking up traffic. And we saw a video online recently of a guy got his foot ran over because of a car that hit him, that was participating in the drag speed shows and whatnot, taking over streets. How is the department combating that? I know you put a detail on it. Are you seeing any progress on that front.
Yeah, we are. We're seeing significant progress, and you haven't seen as much as you saw last year and the year before was horrible.
And it's not just the cars themselves; it's the scooters too, who are
my
the
God.
groups that are taking up.
They're taking up the streets.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's a problem for a number of reasons. And I'll start with the scooters. And we have there's just been an ordinance passed by council. Thank you, council, requiring that if you're you cannot gas off-road vehicles at a gas station in Detroit because they're off-road vehicles. So logically, you shouldn't be pulling up on a vehicle that shouldn't even be on the road and gassing it. You can use a gas can, but and obviously it solves it a little bit.
Yeah.
But we had
if you take it onto the road, then it's
Right.
illegal.
It's illegal. We don't want to chase them because if you chase them, they lose control and they hurt themselves or hurt someone else. The ends doesn't justify, or means doesn't justify the ends, right? I mean, so you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. And our policy is not going to allow us to do that. I'm not going to move on that policy because the idea is not for someone to end up hurt or injured.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we get to a point where we can take these things off the street, I told the officers, get them off the street safely without chasing and someone getting hurt. And they've done a good job on doing that. We got a reward on our rewards TV that if you see them, give us a notification where they at. Once they shut down, we'll take them. And we'll give you a reward for doing it. With regards to the drifting and drag racing, we've had some success this year. We need the community's help with this one. This is, we're finding a lot of these kids don't even own these cars. This is mom and dad's car, mom and dad's Charger, big brother's Charger. So you've got to have conversations with these young people that are doing it. And you brought up something that is very underreported, and that is the number of injuries that the spectators are getting from watching these drag racing and drifting incidents. People losing control of their vehicles, driving in the crowds, people are getting hurt. It's just really, really bad. I'm not saying this person was drag racing or drifting, but they're a young person. And recently I just read in the paper in Van Buren Township, driving with his head outside of his sunroof, and lost control of the vehicle and got hurt. So it's just so much of that going on. And I think we're part of the solution, but I circle back to the earlier question about too many police in certain areas and people being critical. Well, look at all we have to do. Look at all we have to do. And you're going to need police to address the issues of drag racing and drifting. You're going to need police to address the issues of the motor scooters and the off-road vehicles. So that's why you're seeing so many police. And then the towers, right? The towers will tell us, because there's someone in them that's reporting to us, hey, you've got a person that's drifting on Gratiot, then we can get there without a chase, get it boxed in and get it shut down.
But to that point, the towers aren't the only things in the sky. You're getting some help with another eyes in the sky. That's from state police, the helicopter.
That's right.
And so, I've seen the comments online. And what's your message to those who think they can get away from police?
They can't. They can't outrun a helicopter. They can't outrun technology. And why would you just don't do it? Just enjoy the summer. Enjoy this beautiful Detroit summer weekend. Let's just enjoy the beauty of being alive in a beautiful city that's on the rise, and have a good time and leave the guns at home. Everybody thinks they're badder and stronger with a gun in their hand until they pull that trigger and can't take that bullet back. And the results of pulling that trigger will ruin your life. And I can't tell you how many times I have talked to or even looked at interviews of people after they've pulled that trigger. And they're so regretful. And they're so, if I had it to do over, but you don't have it to do over. You've just basically ended your life because someone bumped into you or stepped on your shoe. And you were drunk or you were having a good time or you were tough because you had the gun in your pocket. Don't have it in your pocket. Go to the barbecue without it. Go try it. Go to the party without it and see what happens. Someone bumping into you may be an argument. Someone disrespecting you may end up with a story about how he thought he could disrespect you, but it doesn't conclude with you. And then I pulled out my gun and shot him, and now I'm in jail for the rest of my life, and he's dead. There's 2 lives taken every time someone is killed: the person who does it and the person that they've killed. 2 lives, and then think about their families.
And one last point, wanted to circle back to downtown. There were the scanners that were introduced in Greektown. Do you think that's been a deterrent on crime happening? I know there's police presence, but sometimes you get people downtown or in Greektown who don't know whether to walk through it or walk around it. But what has been the the strategy or idea behind the scan?
Yeah, so it's evolved, and those are metal detectors,
Mhm.
and we have strategically placed them at key points. We had the tragic death of one of our community ambassadors,
Mhm.
security guard at a party store in Greektown. Has been there for many, many years. Just a great man with a great family. He's gone.
Mhm.
If you saw the video and that was that weekend that we talk about, that first week of deployment, and it's just a beautiful person in general who was just viciously murdered for no. I mean, there's never a reason to murder, but just was just so incredibly senseless. And another tough guy who had a verbal altercation that wasn't even that significant. It was just passing words.
Mhm.
He felt disrespected because someone cut in line, and the security guard basically told him to calm down. He promptly walked up to him after the argument was over and shot him in the chest, killed him. And so we looked at that, and we looked at the fact that these are carrying illegal weapons, and we say leave the illegal weapons at home.
Mhm.
And it has been a deterrent for some. Some have tested it. If you are legally carrying a weapon, legally meaning that you have a CPL, and you have that CPL with you, and you're carrying a weapon, have a great day. Enjoy Greektown. If you're legally carrying a weapon, illegally carrying a weapon, felon in possession, no CPL, then that's a problem for you, and you should make a better decision. But they have been great. They've been wonderful tools, more positive than negative.
Mhm.
A few critics, but overwhelmingly well received by not only the merchants, but the people who visit.
The people can also walk around them.
You can.
Mhm.
You can.
Okay. I'm sure the department is using all different type of ways to really keep illegal guns off.
Yeah, we're going to use everything we can to keep illegal guns off the street. Illegal guns.
Right.
This is not my position on weapons or guns. This is about keeping people safe.
Mhm.
I will tell you, there are undercover officers down there, and they are dressed in whatever the attire is of the day. If there's a Lions game going on, they're in a Lions jersey.
Mhm.
If there's a Tigers game going on, guess what? Go Tigers.
Yeah.
Right? And they look like they are having a fantastic time. They've got a cup in their hand. It may or may not be water in it. And they are watching you have a good time. And if you are carrying an illegal weapon, they are radioing that into us.
Mm.
And we are going to be on it.
You have been on the job now, finally, for 2 years now?
2 years and 2 months. 2 years and 3 months.
The county.
Yeah. No, I don't mean it like that.
How has the experience been so far?
Well, it's been wonderful. I have been blessed. I have been just incredibly blessed to have just an incredible group of men and women that are committed to the city and serving these citizens. I've got a really, really good mayor, and I'm not just saying that because he's my boss, but he loves the city. He loves these officers. He appreciates the work that we do, and he understands law enforcement. He's a former prosecutor, and he puts his money where his mouth is. And we've been able to deliver on a raise that is well overdue. The saddest day of my life, though, was the loss of Officer Lauren Courts, which I will never forget. And I think about him. I think about his beautiful family, his children, his wife. Literally every single day, I think about him. I got a picture in my office of him, and I just think about what could have been, because he was on his way of replacing me one day, or whatever chief that'll be in place when he gets there. But it has been overwhelmingly rewarding. I love the city. I love the department, and I've done some things that I never thought I'd have a chance to do. I've done my own lieutenants and sergeants promotional exam. We've delivered on some incredible raises. We're building a new academy. We've delivered on education in the department, where we have now we're going to be close to being one of the most highly educated police departments in the country. We brought in Cleary University. We've got a program with Wayne State University. All of our folks are getting their graduate degrees and undergraduate degrees, and I just could not be prouder. The thing I want to do next is really make an impact on crime. And we've got some impressive numbers, they're not big enough, because it's, bolstering a 12% reduction in homicides it's okay, but that's still over 100 homicides in our city, a city that statistically at least is under 700,000 people, and you've got over 100 people that have lost their lives this year, over 100 people whose loved one won't be coming back home. So it's been a great journey. I'm not done. And I got a lot more work to do, but I'm very glad to be in the position.
And for those wondering, a year to date, murders in the city compared to last year.
Year-to-date murders,
Homicides.
homicides, criminal homicides are down 12%. That's 24 less homicides than last year this time. Last year this time we were sitting at 207, and that was a reduction. And this year we're sitting at 183. But again, not patting ourselves on the back. That's 183 people that lost their lives in our city. So we want to do better. We want to do more, and we're going to do everything we can to report even less numbers next year.
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching. Police Chief James White from the Detroit Police Department. Thank you so much for joining us here at Studio 1452 at Michigan Chronicle. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.